Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the virtual US premiere of The Baby, presented by our partners HBO.
I'm Jen, this is Caitlin, and that was a serious double feature. Really makes you rethink some things.
As a newlywed, it might have hit me in some scarier ways than normal, but aside from that, when HBO reached out to say that they thought that an ATX TV audience would be a great fit, we were seriously so flattered. We know our audience, but it is so wonderful to know that our partners do too and bring us exclusive first looks like this. Then I watched it and completely understood why they thought of us, walking the line between totally frightening and hilarious, and at times hitting way too close to home.
I feel like frightening, hilarious, and uncomfortable is a pretty solid Venn diagram for us. But the show is a lot more than that, as evident from these first two episodes. Shocking, tense, darkly funny, unexpected, and really tapping into those primal fears of being forced into caring for another living thing, person. Ageless demon? Who can say?
So many questions.
Anyhow, we're thrilled to not only be able to share a sneak peek at the first two episodes, but to dive into this very rich and funny text with the brilliant creatives behind this series.
Before we hand it over to the moderator, this is your friendly reminder to keep it spoiler-free out there. The Baby officially premieres April 24th on HBO. So tell your friends to tune in and we can go on this strange journey together.
Also, if you're new to ATX TV, that's us, we're having a festival this June. We are so excited to be back in person, June 2nd through 5th in Austin. So check out atxfestival.com for more details on that.
And now we'd like to introduce our moderator, entertainment journalist Valentina Valentini, who will bring out our panelists. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me. I am going to introduce everybody and we can get going here. We have co-creator, writer, and executive producer, Sean Robbins-Grace, executive producer and the director of episode 1, Nicole Kassell, co-executive producer, Katie Carpenter, and our lead, the amazing Michelle de Swarte.
Hi.
Hello.
Now, I know that Katie might have to leave about 15 minutes early to catch a flight. So if she disappears, it's all okay. It's not just a technical issue. Yeah, like they said, this show is a wild ride and I have so many emotions while watching it. Sean, why don't we start with you? Tell us about the premise of The Baby and what the impetus was for creating it.
So The Baby is the story of a woman in her late 30s called Natasha, whose friends are all having babies and kind of coming to that point in their lives. And she's reacting really badly to it. She's being a bit of an arsehole and can't really figure out why. But she knows something's up. So she goes away for the weekend to try and get her head straight. And she's outside having a cigarette at night and a baby falls out of the sky and lands in her arms and smiles up at her. And this is a character who doesn't want to have a baby. So she tries to give it to other people. So she's no longer responsible for it. And every time she does, something terrible happens and she ends up back with the baby. So the show, as a kind of starting point, is an exploration of partly this idea of like compulsory motherhood, the idea that for a lot of women, the expectation that you will either become a mother or have an opinion about whether you become a mother or not is just like what has to be a big question in your life. And I guess the impetus that drove the place that the show came from was I guess reaching that point in my life and having a lot of questions about why motherhood looked like such a dark and scary thing, but it's so taboo to talk about it like that. And I guess this story is an opportunity for me to explore all my different feelings around it and try and understand like why I found it so confusing.
This is your first project as a creator and showrunner, but you're not new to the TV industry. Can you give us a quick rundown of how the series came to be and how you got it in front of executives and eventually to production?
Yeah, sure. So I worked in TV already for 10 years doing development, which is where you work with writers, script writers to develop their scripts to get them into production, hopefully. So I spent quite a lot of time working with other writers, and often thinking like, oh, that job looks more fun than my job. So a couple of years ago, I decided to try and write, and me and Lucy, who's the other co-creator, came up with this idea initially as a short film and as a kind of proof of concept for a feature film, we thought. And then when I wrote this, she wanted to step into producing and I wanted to step into writing. So we were like, oh great, let's use this project to like try out, test those skills. And then when I wrote the script, it was sort of obvious that it felt like the first episode to a TV show. And then we took it to Sister, who were really, really excited about it. And they then took it to HBO and SKY and kind of supported us in developing it and standing up on its feet. So I think, the truth is my history working in TV stood me in really good stead to understand what broadcasters are looking for and how to package a show and how to present it to people and how to pitch it. So it kind of, that was the trajectory.
Katie, I'm going to ask you, well, Sister is such a well-known and acclaimed team. What was it about this show that really resonated with you, Katie? And how does the process work when collaborating with artists and talent?
I think the thing about the project that really resonated with us was kind of how fully formed it was and how clear it was as a conceit, but also how utterly different and original it felt as an approach to what is a very relatable question. Mm-hmm. It's so rare. I work basically doing what Siân used to do, so it's so rare that you receive a script that does all of those things. And amongst the executive producers at Sister, we kind of spoke about Siân's script as like an egg, like it was this perfectly formed kind of egg that landed in our inbox. And I remember the day that myself and Naomi DePere, another executive producer, read it. We got it sent by Siân's agent and we read it in literally one sitting, and we messaged each other straight away being like, we have to make this. We were just so passionate about it. And that's because the voice was so strong. Even though Siân hadn't written before, her voice was so clear and exciting. And then in terms of getting the project up on its feet, it's really about us being creative midwives to Siân, Nikki and Michelle's kind of collective vision of the show. And it was all about just getting the right creatives on board and giving them the conditions in which to do their best work, and just fighting all the time for that best work to be what it was in Siân's original script, which was totally original and really exciting.
I feel like maybe it was also a perfectly formed baby that fell into your lap, maybe not.
Oh, it was so easy.
Thank you for the setup. Nicole, you have also worked on awesome TV shows on the acclaimed HBO series Watchmen and one of my personal favorites, The Leftovers. Let's talk about your vision as the pilot director. And did you use any films for any other projects for inspiration?
Very much so. When I read the script, I immediately started seeing images and references. And likewise to Katie, when I read the script, it was it was very early in COVID. So it was it was a very terrifying time, and it was hard to take in anything outside of the news. But my agent said, this is special, read it. And then my manager said, WTF, you'll probably love it. And it did, it cut through that noise and it just grabbed me. And what I saw a lot of the Coen brothers, but definitely like Raising Arizona smashed up against The Shining, and with some of Rosemary's Baby mixed in. And most importantly, I saw things combining that I've never seen. And what I always look for is that originality, and having it in the story liberates me visually to be able to hopefully create something cinematically super original as well.
What was your focus for setting up the scope of the story in the pilot episode for the rest of the directors after you?
That's number one. I just have to be true to the script, and so I wanted it to have production value, but also to be grounded and feel real, yet have these insane things happening. But also having worked for HBO before, I know the scale kind of what they're looking for, and I like being pushed to that. It's go as big as you can within the budgetary constraints you have, and also, but story always has to come first to make sure you're not doing tricks and snazzy things just to show off. It's always story first. And so the goal was absolutely to ground the story as wild as it can be, but be true to the tone of every scene, and trusting the script that I went on the wild ride of reading that. And I know that if I can be true to each scene, the script so worked for me that cinematically it will work as well.
It was like, I'm going to do another baby joke here. It was like raising your little baby and sending it out into the world for the other directors.
Yeah, and it always is. I very much think about, in cinema or filmmaking, there's always kind of often the comparison to war is called upon, even saying shooting instead of filming. But I much prefer the birth analogy of, you're nurturing, you're gestating, you're filming, and then you send it out into the world. Like baby is about to go to college right now with coming to you guys.
I promise I didn't I didn't write any of these baby jokes beforehand. They're just coming out of the top of my head. They're so easy. Michelle, gosh, it was awesome to watch you. Because your background is in modeling and comedy and presenting, but watching this show, like, you would not know that you have not been acting your whole life. How did you, tell us how you came onto this project and what drew you to the series?
Well, I got sent the script. I was in the middle of gigs. I think we were in between lockdowns here in the UK, and I'd been sent the script. And I didn't really know about what you have to do to prep for sending in a tape and whatever. And they were like, have a read, you've got to send it in by Monday. I was like, yeah. And then Sunday I read the script and I was like, oh, I really want this. And I called my cousin up and I was like, you need to get over to my house right now. I need to do this tape. And
hopefully that wasn't breaking any COVID rules.
No, it was in between lockdown. It was in between
right. Fine. Okay, good.
And yeah, she read the script and she was like, do they know you? And I was like, no. She was like, it really sounds like you. I was like, I know. So yeah, and then that just kind of, we handed in the tape and then I got called back, and that just kind of started this wild ride of getting to know Nikki and Siân and Natasha.
Siân, did you have Michelle in mind?
No, I didn't, but sort of had the inverse experience, which was when we saw her tape, we were like, this person is Natasha. And from that point on, it was sort of hard to think about anyone else in the role. And then when we met, I was like, oh, you're literally the character. So it was really, that never happens basically. And it was just so lucky.
If can I share a story, a quick, because it's amazing. In terms of what we were talking about, keeping it grounded, everything truly hinges on Michelle. No pressure, but it was that you had to believe Michelle and that Natasha and Siân had written her so specifically, and even down to the accent, what her accent should be or would be, and Michelle walked in. But it's really a testament to our casting director, Aisha, and It's a crazy story where her husband had a Zoom entertainment, and it was Michelle doing stand-up for them. And her husband said, Taisha, you have to see this person. I believe have you guys heard that story before?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought there was going to be some, like, I don't know, cool story of like, how you found me. I was like, oh, Sean. Me and Sean walked through the park, and when I first met Sean to speak about Natasha, once I'd got the part, and I've done one acting job before this, and I was like, well, surely they must have seen me on this show.
My previous work.
Sean was like, no, the casting director saw you on a Zoom gig. I was doing all these corporate gigs.
Yeah.
In lockdown over Zoom, and I was like, what? Set up much like this. So yeah, it was kind of
amazing.
Are you, Michelle, are you a fan of horror comedy blend or horror in general?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of horror. I mean, normally when sort of horror and comedy are combined, it's not intentional, but like I'm a really big fan of horror. I love it.
Okay. This, like you said, this is your second TV show, but you've been scene partnered with a baby. So that's really thrown you off the deep end. How did that go down? I mean, tell us all about it. There is no detail too small to spare about working with a baby as a scene partner, I think.
Yeah. I you know, when you work with a baby, the baby one doesn't care that it's your scene partner. Has no respect or regard for the set and what you're trying to do, because they're a baby, you know. And I think some of what Natasha was called to do on this show was, you know, be quite abrasive, and so it was really important to build trust with the babies, and because they're twins, and also build trust with mum and dad, and make sure that we could have nice experiences when the cameras weren't rolling. So, you know, if there was a scene that felt quite tense, that they felt comfortable with me and trusted me. So, you know, if I was shouting or something, they'd more look at me like, what? Rather than, you know, believe the moment. So yeah, it takes a bit of work for sure, and it takes a bit of patience, but we were really lucky. Those babies are amazing. And mum and dad were really amazing as well.
Yeah. Anybody else have some good on-set baby stories? It's like when there's animals in TV shows or films, I like to ask about, like, if the animal's acting like a diva or something. But
yeah, we had a scene with both a baby and an animal in it at the same time, where we were just like, what did we
that's the cardinal, those are the two cardinal rules.
Yeah. But it's worth also just saying, from the outside looking into that experience that Michelle just described, like, we didn't really understand the kind of full emotional scope of what was going to be asked of Michelle until she was on set with the babies. And then we were like, oh right, she's like the huge amount of emotional labor that goes into what Michelle just described, and then on top of that, being able to like switch into a scene, only having 2 or 3 takes if you're lucky, based on the baby's performance. But you know, I think like what you see in the show is just testament to like how skillful Michelle and the rest of the baby team were in doing that. And there's also I think there's something quite interesting, like, you know, in the theatre they say, like, whenever there's a pen on a table and it rolls off the table, everyone stops looking at the actors and just watches the pen. The babies sort of have that effect on the scene, which is like, you always believe them because they're always being truthful, and that sort of invites everyone else around them in the scene to be as truthful as the babies. So those moments where like Natasha's looking at the baby because like something crazy's just happened, or, you know, the baby's giggling at her, like, that's so real. And I think that's part of what makes it very compelling to watch.
And it's also where the horror, so much of the horror sits, actually, is in that the kind of truth of the baby in the scene. The baby itself feels so dangerous because it's so real or something.
Yeah. And then there was the whole crew became very skilled at baby management, basically, because we'd obviously be shooting around the babies. They can only shoot for 4 hours a day, and they're only allowed on set for like 20 minutes at a time. And you had to work around their nap times and their meal times, and if they were grouchy and all of this. So the whole crew, there was a song that the babies really loved called Wind the Bobbin Up, which goes like, wind the bobbin up, wind the bobbin. And the whole crew, what do you say, stop?
That's a don't.
Don't PTSD. Literally, we'd get on set and you'd have 40 adults doing this until the babies calm down, like every day.
It was quite funny on the other side of that, like you'd get the rush, you'd like watch the rushes each morning, and like you just hear like between each scene, like wind the bobbin up. You could tell how stressed people are by how high pitched it was.
The tone. Right. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, because Michelle, when you said before, you read the script on Sunday and you're like, oh, I actually really want this. Like, I wonder if you didn't have the experience before of working with the baby and knowing like, oh, actually, this might be really challenging. This might be like a really emotional ride for me. And so it was almost like a naivety that you were like, awesome, I want this, let's go for it.
Yeah, and I think it served me well.
The not knowing. Will you?
No, and I also had nothing to compare it to, you know, so I was just kind of like, right, this is acting. A couple of babies and a dog, probably.
Will you ever take a role again with a baby?
Yeah, because I can imagine that. I can't imagine having that much baby time in the future. You know what I mean? Like this show was so baby heavy.
Baby, right?
The star of the show. So, you know, the show's called The Baby. So even when I watch shows, I don't see anything where there's a baby this present in a series. So yeah, because probably moving forward, it would be really easy, you know?
Yeah. Okay, enough about baby. I wanna hear about you, Michelle. Can you tell us about the character and inspiration that you drew from to play her, Natasha?
Yeah. Natasha's like, you know, she's flawed and very lovable at the same time, you know, like you have a friend that is just like Natasha, and if you don't have a Natasha in your life, you are probably Natasha, you know, like she's right. She's and also I think most of us have had that feeling of abandonment in our lives, whether it be with your friends or a social group or just something where you've enjoyed a moment of your life and then that moment's ended, right? And you kind of want to hold on to it, and that's where Natasha is, and you can totally empathize with her, and she's pretty chaotic in the way that she handles it, but it's definitely entertaining and it's funny.
Did you have any personal or then like other characters too that you'd seen before previously to like pull inspiration from?
Yeah, I definitely like just people I'd met, friends, family members, my own experiences, you know, like she's relatable because she's so messy, you know what I mean? And she's so just transparent, and so yeah, I related to a lot of what she's going through, like her emotional turmoil. She's sort of stunted, and she's built these tools to get through life, and she hasn't advanced past them, you know, and her friends have, and so yeah, that's totally relatable.
The depiction of different types of motherhood, what it means to be a mother, how we mother our children, those are themes that really stand out from the show. Sean or Michelle, and anyone who wants to answer this, really, tell us about this and these themes and working them in.
Well, I guess I'll go first.
I'll
chime in after. It's funny how everyone has like a different take on what the sort of show is about, right? But for me, I think it's about probably less so about motherhood, or the way I see it, and more so about childhood, right? And just how it affects the way we behave for all of us, you know, like how you can be caught on a loop, like the baby's physically caught on a loop because it hasn't been able to grow emotionally, right? That abandonment has kind of kept it where it is. And the same thing's going on with Natasha as well. She's sort of stuck as well, and it all seems very like childhood based to me, you know. But yeah, so I guess I see it more about that.
Yeah, I mean, motherhood and childhood, mothers and daughters especially, I know this baby is a boy, but like they're just intricately linked. You can't talk about being a mother without talk about being a child as well, I think.
Yeah.
Sean, you looked like you maybe had something to say on the themes.
Oh yeah, always. Echoing what Michelle said, like it's amazing how different people have different like takes on the material, and that's sort of a really exciting thing about it and a really scary thing about it too, that you can't really control how people are gonna respond to what we're putting out there. But we thought a lot in the writers' room about the difference between like motherhood as an institution, as a set of expectations or behavioural codes that are quite like strictly policed often around like, what does the good mother look like? How does she behave? Where does she come from? What, you know what I mean? And that institution, those like codes can be very like restrictive and violent. And then versus like mothering, which is an act of care that anyone can do to anyone. And that because we sort of silo off this particular like form of care into like, oh, only these people do this kind of care for these kinds of people, it really like limits the way we think about family and the way we think about like raising each other or raising ourselves, or like, you know, like for instance, Natasha doesn't have a child, but she in some ways like has mothered her sister, she's mothered her dad, or like Foos, the guy who we meet in the cafe, he like mothers his dog. You know what I mean? And it's not to like, so I guess like one of the things that we're curious about is sort of like politicizing this like idea of what perfect mother is or the ideal mother is, and trying to complicate it a bit and say like, why do those rules exist, and who do they actually benefit and who do they hurt?
Yeah, there are two scenes that really stood out for me in episode 2, where it was like these, I guess it was one. This one scene really stood out in episode 2, this mothering scene, like you're talking about, right? There's being the mother and the mothering. And it was when Natasha's making the food for the baby, right? He's crying, she's pissed off that he's loud, and she's like, needs to do something for herself, right? Which is going back to her cooking, her food making, and that nourishment. But then the scene, and then we get to this point where she's like, you realize she's been making food for the baby, like she's feeding the baby. I don't have a question in there. I was just waxing poetic, I guess.
I love that you love that moment, because I think that's the moment that took us by surprise as well. It's like she's such a tough character, and she's all angles, but then when she's able to do care, at least at the start of the show, and she's able to do caring on her terms, it's really powerful. And that sort of like magnetic charm of the character, like you want, like when she shines her light on you, you're like, it's the best feeling ever. And the baby is such like an effective antagonist for Natasha, because in that moment you see the babe. Natasha's like, at the start of the episode, Natasha's like, I'm not letting you inside my head. And by the end of the episode, she's cooking for him and feeding him and sniffing his head, and he seduced her. But even though she's got all these barriers up against that seduction, so I really love that scene as well.
Now, obviously the show is a dark comedy, and there's this one scene I immediately think of when I think of dark comedy. The poop scene in episode 2 in the cookie store bathroom, and how it gets all over Natasha. Now, I have changed a lot of diapers, a lot of nappies in my life, and that fear is real. It's so funny and terrifying to watch all at once. Tell me about using comedy as a vehicle to help tell the story.
Yeah, so again, I really love that scene because it's like Natasha's witnessed all of this horrific stuff already. She's seen people die, she's seen bloody horrors created by this baby, and she's ready to like deal with any of it, and then she's completely undone by a shitty nappy. And again, it's like the thing that she's undone by is the baby's vulnerability, because in that moment he's completely dependent on her for his well-being, and that is like the scariest possible thing ever. And I think that's trying to speak to that taboo of like why it's so scary to take on that responsibility. But what the humor and Jordan Peele is like a huge inspiration. Obviously Get Out is like, it's become like a seminal comedy horror, and he talks about like the social monster, and it was we just like watched his film and studied his script like endlessly for this. And he talks so eloquently about like comedy and horror being two sides of the same coin, because it's about like the build up of tension and then the release of it. And because we're exploring such like really taboo questions in the show, like feelings of hatred and murderous feelings towards a baby, we really go there. We take it as far as we can. And so the horror like is the genre that allows you to like go to those really shocking places, but then the comedy allows you to do that in a safe way. So you can actually take the audience like really far along that road of like inviting them into those feelings, because they feel like you're kind of on side with them. And then you kind of surprise them either with like a laugh or a shock. But they're just both such effective genre tools for like manipulation and bringing people in with you to those kind of uncomfortable places.
Yeah, like I'm thinking about that. Wait, this was in episode 2, right? The field scene, leaving the baby in the field, right? That's not spoiling anything for this panel. Yeah, that scene, that's exactly what you're talking about. Is I was on board enough at that point, because that scene isn't funny when we're watching her leave the baby in the field and getting lost, and I'm like, oh shit, is this real? Is this, this is where we're going with this story? But you're right, as a viewer, I was on board enough, because it was like the nudge, like we're not gonna leave you out there in that field like that baby. Michelle, what conversations did you have with Sean and Lucy? I know Lucy isn't here, sadly, but what the conversations that you had with them and Nicole about how you should play Natasha and sort of the arc of your character?
I was really lucky, Babby, because we were meeting up for a long, like the process between doing my first audition and starting filming was long and also intense. And I got quite, I was really lucky. I got guided. It was a really safe space, like the lead up towards the first day of filming, and I had loads of chats with Nikki and Siân over Zoom, to the point where I was like, are you giving me the job or not? Like, what's going on? Like we really had a lot of time to comb through the character and like what Natasha's intentions were, and just her kind of, I guess, her background and why there would be such a push-pull with some of the events that transpire for her.
Siân, do you want to talk about those conversations at all? And if not, that's okay.
No, it's more just like the conversations are sort of like talking about, it's sort of like gossiping about a friend with someone else. It's like, why do you think she did that? I think it's because of this. I don't know. I think it's because of I don't know. Like, and it's the best part of the job, which I'd never experienced before as a writer, which is when like you like the character goes from being like an idea on a page to being something that a person is bringing to life, and that's like a special kind of magic. That's like the best bit. Yeah, just those conversations, they're better than any of the rest of it. I can't remember the content of much of them.
Well, I'll hop in. I mean,
Yeah.
once I, in addition to the casting process, once Michelle had that part, she did the, long walk and talk with Sean. And then what I like to do is sit down and read the script together and go through scene by scene, any questions, any thoughts, and then absolutely get her together with her best mates, and whether we read the scenes, but not to like rehearse, but more just to have them start spending time together and to become friends, so that it's not completely fabricated on the day. And then I also, I really wanted to get Michelle in her apartment, and like, this is where you've been living the last 10 years. And, get her in once it's at enough of a point where it's got life, but any feedback, anything you want or need, or, it's, to me, it's putting on all these layers of skin, and the costumes, that's a huge part of it, finding the character through the clothes. And then I think I definitely had you meet the babies and parents, at least in Hello. Again, just doing everything possible so that people are, as uncomfortable as the first day is, you have to hit the ground running. And so just truly preparing for that.
Now, without giving any spoilers away beyond the first 2 episodes, does anyone want to share something you're looking forward to having audiences see or experience? Michelle, maybe we'll start with you.
Hold on. Okay, so without giving too much away.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tricky, but like so everyone who watches this is gonna have watched the first 3 episodes, right? The first 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're for a wild ride. Like, that's all I can say. It's a wild ride. Like, even for me, when I think about each episode, I'm like, wow, yeah, that happened. Oh my God, yeah, that happened. Natasha definitely has some pretty big moments. And also you've got all these new sort of characters that get introduced. So you're going to meet a bunch of other people that are in and around Natasha's life that are pretty hilarious and fun.
Yeah, and that get to shed light on who she is more. We get to find out more about her through these other people's eyes as well. Yeah,
exactly. She definitely has some unexpected turns.
And Nicole, do you want to give us anything unspoilery?
I also find that challenging. I just think hopefully this has been catnip that'll keep you engaged and wanting to devour the rest, because it's a delicious ride.
Sean, I mean, and it doesn't have to be like a specific thing that you're looking forward to them to see, like almost, that's why I kind of said experience too. Like maybe there's an emotion you're excited for them to experience, or, I mean, it's hard. It's a hard question. I'm sorry. I saved the hardest one for last, but we can speak abstractly.
I actually have a really specific answer to this that I'm excited to share. I think one of the best things about the show is that one of the main character doesn't speak. And we watch like loads of shows like Turner and Hooch and Beethoven, and obviously like Look Who's Talking, and like all these shows which have a character at the heart of it, where you build a story around who can't talk, but by the end of it you really understand them and love them. And I think what like is amazing, the process of building this character using like 2 twins, the family around them, the actors, the sound mixing team, the score, the camera team, like the VFX team, like all of literally 100 people went into making the character of the baby, and we pulled off a really like wicked thing, which is that by the end you have all these different feelings about him, and you understand him as a rich and whole character, even though he's literally only said 1 word. And I think that's like I'm really excited to see how that lands with people.
Great.
And to see how people feel about the baby. Like, some people are going to love him. Even in the writers' room, people are like, stab him. And other people are like, no, it's just a baby. Do you know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
Well, and I'd say most importantly, and the reason I wanted to get involved is that it'll leave you with something to talk about. And with, we're not giving answers. We're trying to generate conversation and real, truthful, honest conversation. Or just identification, having the character say how she felt about her baby. One of those mums in the Kidzania, just some of the things people say may be a real relief for some people to hear, to leave you feeling less alone, because you can feel very alone with your own demons. But I'd say number one, I really hope people are left really having something to talk about. And not only how did we do it, but what it triggers.
Well, I'm telling everybody I know to watch it, and I am hopefully on the precipice of having my own baby, though maybe not now. Maybe I just won't do that.
congratulations.
I'm joking. I love babies. I love them. If that is it for my questions, I am really happy to have done this, and it was really great to talk to you all, and congratulations on such a fun, weird, awesome show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks very much.